A lady was left to die by her own children after a devastating accident. Years later, as they returned seeking their inheritance, they discovered something unexpected. The rain poured down in relentless sheets, turning the streets into shimmering rivers of reflections and shadows. The city seemed to hold its breath, the usual hustle and bustle subdued by the storm's ferocity. Margaret's hands gripped the steering wheel of her old sedan, knuckles white with tension. She squinted through the windshield, the wipers struggling to keep up with the deluge. The glow of streetlights blurred into hazy orbs, and the road ahead was a dark, winding ribbon. She was late, again, to another family gathering. Her children, David, Laura, and Michael, had long ceased to expect her punctuality, but tonight, she had promised to make an effort. Her heart ached with the thought of their disappointment, a familiar pang that had grown more pronounced with each passing year. Margaret's thoughts wandered to the past, to the days when her children were young and she was the center of their world. She remembered bedtime stories, scraped knees, and the warmth of tiny hands in hers. But those days felt like a distant dream, replaced by the cold reality of strained relationships and misunderstandings. She sighed, pushing the memories aside, focusing on the road ahead. Suddenly, a flash of headlights blinded her, and the screech of tires filled the air. A car swerved into her lane, too close, too fast. There was no time to react. The impact was violent, shattering glass and crumpling metal. Margaret's world exploded into chaos, pain searing through her body as the darkness swallowed her whole. The ambulance arrived swiftly, red and blue lights cutting through the rain-soaked night. Paramedics worked with practiced efficiency, extricating her broken form from the wreckage. The world was a blur of pain and noise, voices shouting, and the sharp scent of gasoline mingling with the rain. At the hospital, the doctors moved quickly, assessing her injuries. Margaret drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain ebbing and flowing like the tide. She caught glimpses of faces, some familiar, others not, but the one she longed to see, her children's, were conspicuously absent. David, the eldest, was the first to arrive. He stood at the edge of her bed, arms crossed, his face a mask of controlled emotion. Laura and Michael followed, their expressions a mixture of concern and guilt. They hadn't seen their mother in months, too caught up in their own lives to notice her growing isolation. The doctor's voice was a low murmur, detailing Margaret's injuries. A broken leg, several fractured ribs, and a severe concussion. The prognosis was grim, a long road to recovery with no guarantees. The children exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. "We need to make a decision," David said, his voice tight. "She can't stay here forever." Laura bit her lip, eyes darting to her mother's pale face. "What are you suggesting?" "A care facility," Michael interjected, his tone practical. "Somewhere she can get the help she needs." Margaret stirred, their voices penetrating the fog of her mind. She opened her eyes, meeting their gazes with a mixture of hope and despair. "Please, don't leave me," she whispered, the effort exhausting her. David's expression softened for a moment, but he quickly masked it with determination. "It's for the best, Mom. You need professional care." Days turned into weeks, and Margaret found herself in a sterile, impersonal room in a care facility. The walls were a pale, institutional green, and the air smelled faintly of disinfectant. She felt like a prisoner, confined to a bed and surrounded by strangers. Her children visited sporadically at first, their guilt palpable. But as time passed, their visits became less frequent, and Margaret's hope dwindled. One afternoon, as she lay staring at the ceiling, a soft knock sounded at her door. Emma, a young nurse with kind eyes and a gentle smile, entered. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Thatcher. How are we feeling today?" Margaret managed a weak smile. "As well as can be expected, I suppose." Emma pulled up a chair and sat beside her bed. "I brought you something," she said, producing a small, wrapped package. "I thought it might brighten your day." Curiosity piqued, Margaret unwrapped the package to reveal a set of watercolor paints and a sketch pad. Tears welled in her eyes. I used to paint, she whispered, running her fingers over the smooth surface of the paper. Emma's smile widened. I know. I found some of your old paintings in storage. They're beautiful. I thought maybe you'd like to start again. Margaret's heart ached with gratitude. Thank you, Emma. This means more than you know. Days turned into weeks, and with Emma's encouragement, Margaret began to paint again. Each brushstroke was a step toward healing, each color a testament to her resilience. She painted scenes from her memories, landscapes of her childhood, and portraits of her children as she remembered them, innocent and full of life. The facility became her world, a place where she could rebuild herself piece by piece. Emma's visits were a lifeline, and they developed a deep bond, sharing stories and laughter. Margaret's strength slowly returned, and with it, a sense of purpose she thought she had lost forever. One rainy afternoon, much like the night of her accident, Margaret sat by the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. Emma entered quietly, holding a steaming cup of tea. Lost in thought again? She asked, placing the cup on the table. Margaret nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Just thinking about how far I've come. And how much I owe to you. Emma shook her head. You did this, Margaret. You found the strength within yourself. I just gave you a little nudge. Margaret reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. Thank you, Emma. For everything. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but Margaret felt a warmth within her that no storm could extinguish. She was no longer a victim of her circumstances, but a survivor, an artist, and, most importantly, a mother who had found herself again. And as the days passed, she knew that one day, her children would return. Not for the inheritance they expected, but for the legacy she had created, a testament to her strength, love, and unwavering spirit. The days in the care facility blurred together for Margaret, each one marked by the steady routine of meals, medication, and therapy sessions. Despite the physical pain and the emotional sting of her children's absence, she clung to the small joys Emma brought into her life. Yet, the hope of seeing her children again, of feeling their presence and love, never fully faded from her heart. David, Laura, and Michael were living their lives far removed from the walls of the care facility. David, the eldest, had thrown himself into his career as a corporate lawyer. He was always too busy, always on the go, his phone a constant companion. Laura, a stay-at-home mother of two, juggled the demands of her young family with an air of perpetual exhaustion. Michael, the youngest, had moved across the country, pursuing his dream of becoming an artist, ironically disconnected from the mother who had nurtured his creativity. Their visits had dwindled to rare occasions, usually on holidays or birthdays, when guilt or obligation would drive them to her side. On one such occasion, the three of them found themselves in the sterile, quiet room of the care facility, standing awkwardly around their mother's bed. "Mom, how are you feeling?" Laura asked, her voice tinged with the same guilt that shadowed her eyes. Margaret managed a faint smile. "I'm doing better, Laura. The therapy helps." David glanced at his watch, shifting from foot to foot. "That's good to hear. Look, we were thinking, it might be best to talk to the doctors about your long-term care options. You know, just to make sure you're getting the best treatment." Margaret's smile faltered. "Long-term care? What do you mean?" Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "We mean, maybe it's time to consider a more permanent solution. You need constant care, Mom. We just want what's best for you." Margaret's heart sank. She looked at her children, their faces a blur of concern and detachment. "I see," she said quietly. "You're thinking of leaving me here for good." David stepped forward, his expression softening slightly. "Mom, we'll still visit. But you need professional care. We're doing this because we love you." "Love?" The word hung in the air, heavy with irony. Margaret nodded slowly, too tired to argue. "I understand," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "If that's what you think is best." The visit ended shortly after, her children making excuses about work and family commitments before leaving her alone once more. Margaret watched them go, a deep ache settling in her chest. The realization that she had been abandoned by the very people she had devoted her life to was a bitter pill to swallow. Days turned into weeks, and Margaret threw herself into her painting with renewed fervor. Each brushstroke was a release, a way to channel her pain and sorrow into something tangible. Emma continued to be her anchor, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a warm, golden glow, Emma sat by Margaret's side, her presence a comforting balm to the older woman's troubled heart. "You know," Margaret began, her voice tinged with sadness, "I used to paint with Michael when he was a child. He had such talent, such a vivid imagination." Emma smiled softly. "He must have gotten that from you. Your paintings are incredible, Margaret. They tell a story, your story." Margaret looked at the canvas before her, a portrait of her children as she remembered them, innocent, happy, untouched by the complexities of adulthood. "I wonder if they even remember those days," she mused. "It feels like a lifetime ago." Emma reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Margaret's arm. "They may be distant now, but people change. Sometimes it takes time for them to realize what's truly important." Margaret sighed, a mixture of hope and resignation in her eyes. "I just wish I could go back, fix what went wrong. Maybe then they wouldn't have turned out so disconnected?" Emma finished gently. Margaret nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes. Disconnected." Emma squeezed her hand. "You did your best, Margaret. And you're still here, still fighting. That's what matters." The days continued to pass, each one a testament to Margaret's resilience. She poured her soul into her art, creating a series of paintings that captured her journey, her struggles, her triumphs, her pain, and her hope. Each piece was a chapter of her life, a reflection of the strength she had found within herself. One morning, as she sat in her room, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the vibrant colors of her latest painting, a knock sounded at her door. It was Emma, carrying a letter. "This came for you," she said, handing it to Margaret with a smile. Margaret took the letter, her heart quickening with anticipation. She recognized the handwriting, it was from Laura. With trembling hands, she opened it and began to read. "Dear Mom, I hope this letter finds you well. I've been thinking a lot about you lately, about everything you went through and how strong you've been. I'm sorry I haven't been there for you as much as I should have. Life has been complicated. But that's no excuse. I've been talking to David and Michael, and we all agree that we need to do better. We need to be there for you, just like you were always there for us. I know we've been distant, but I want to change that. I want us to be a family again. Love, Laura." Tears streamed down Margaret's face as she read the words. A glimmer of hope flickered in her heart. Maybe, just maybe, her children were beginning to understand. Maybe they were finally ready to reconnect. Emma watched her, a knowing smile on her lips. "It looks like things might be changing," she said softly. Margaret nodded, clutching the letter to her chest. "Yes," she whispered. "Maybe they are." The journey was far from over, but in that moment, surrounded by her paintings and the promise of reconciliation, Margaret felt a spark of hope. She had been abandoned, yes, but she had not been defeated. And as the days turned into weeks, she continued to paint, to heal, and to hold on to the belief that one day, her children would truly come home. Margaret's world had become a delicate tapestry woven from threads of pain, hope, and resilience. As she continued to paint, each stroke of the brush revealed a fragment of her soul, a testament to the life she was rebuilding. Emma's support and the occasional letters from her children were the lifelines that kept her anchored to this newfound sense of purpose. One bright morning, as Margaret sat by the window, the sun casting a warm glow on her easel, Emma entered the room with a familiar smile. "Good morning, Margaret. How's the masterpiece coming along?" Margaret turned to her, eyes sparkling with the joy that painting brought her. "It's almost finished. I think this might be my best one yet." Emma leaned over to admire the canvas. It was a landscape, rich with vibrant colors and intricate details, capturing the essence of a place Margaret held dear in her memories. "It's beautiful," Emma said softly. "You have such a gift." Margaret's smile widened. "Thank you, Emma. I feel like I've finally found a way to express everything I've been through. It's liberating." Emma nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "I'm glad. You deserve this, Margaret. You've come so far." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was one of the facility's administrators, Mr. Thompson, holding a clipboard and wearing a stern expression. "Mrs. Thatcher, we need to discuss something important regarding your stay here," he said, his tone businesslike. Margaret's heart skipped a beat. "Of course. What is it?" Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "We've been reviewing your case, and given the progress you've made, we believe it might be time to discuss your long-term plans. You're becoming more independent, and we need to consider the best course of action for your continued recovery." Margaret exchanged a glance with Emma, who gave her a reassuring nod. "What do you suggest?" Margaret asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "We believe you're ready to transition to a more independent living situation. With the right support, of course. This facility is intended for acute care, and you've progressed beyond that. We think you'd benefit from a setting where you have more freedom and control over your daily activities," Mr. Thompson explained. The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. Margaret had grown accustomed to the safety and structure of the care facility, but the thought of regaining her independence filled her with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. "I'll need to discuss this with my children," she said finally. "But thank you for considering my needs." Mr. Thompson nodded. "Of course, Mrs. Thatcher. We'll give you some time to think it over and make the necessary arrangements." After he left, Margaret turned to Emma, who was beaming with pride. "You see? You're stronger than you know. This is a big step, Margaret. I'm here to support you, whatever you decide." Margaret reached out, taking Emma's hand. "Thank you, Emma. I couldn't have come this far without you." Later that day, Margaret sat down to write to her children, sharing the news of her progress and the possibility of moving to a more independent living arrangement. She chose her words carefully, hoping to convey her excitement without overwhelming them. As she sealed the envelope, she felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She had no idea how they would react, but she knew she had to take this step for herself. In the weeks that followed, Margaret continued to paint, each piece more vibrant and expressive than the last. Her room transformed into a gallery of her journey, each painting a chapter of her story. Emma often sat with her, discussing the inspiration behind each piece and encouraging her to explore new techniques and styles. One afternoon, as they admired a particularly striking portrait of Margaret's younger self, Emma said, "You know, Margaret, you should consider exhibiting your work. These paintings deserve to be seen by more people." Margaret looked at her in surprise. "An exhibition? I'm not sure I'm ready for that." Emma smiled warmly. "You've already come so far. Sharing your art with the world could be the next step in your healing process. Think about it." The idea lingered in Margaret's mind, and the more she thought about it, the more it appealed to her. Her paintings were more than just a personal catharsis, they were a testament to her strength and resilience. She decided to take Emma's advice and began researching local galleries and exhibition opportunities. Meanwhile, her children's responses to her letter trickled in, each one filled with a mixture of pride and hesitation. David wrote first, his tone formal but supportive. "Mom, I'm glad to hear you're doing better. If you think moving to a more independent living arrangement is the right step, we'll support you in any way we can. Let's discuss the details when we visit next." Laura's letter was more emotional. "Mom, I'm so proud of you. I've been thinking a lot about our relationship and everything you've been through. I want to help in any way I can. Let's make this transition together." Michael's response was the most surprising. "Mom, your letter made me realize how much I've been missing. I want to be there for you, and I'm sorry I haven't been. Let's work on this together." Their words filled Margaret with a sense of hope and determination. They were beginning to understand, to reconnect in ways she had longed for. With their support, she felt ready to take the next step in her journey. The day of the family meeting arrived, and Margaret found herself surrounded by her children in the familiar setting of her room. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful, each of them grappling with their emotions. "Mom," David began, his voice steady but gentle. "We've talked it over, and we think moving to an independent living facility is a good idea. We want to be there for you, to help make this transition as smooth as possible." Laura nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "We found a place that's close to us, with all the support you'll need. It's a beautiful community, and we think you'll love it there." Michael stepped forward, his expression earnest. "And I've been thinking about your paintings, Mom. We should find a way to share them with others. Maybe we can organize a small exhibition to celebrate your progress." Margaret's heart swelled with gratitude and love. "Thank you, all of you. This means more to me than you can imagine. I'm ready to take this step, with your help." Together, they made the necessary arrangements, each of her children playing a role in ensuring her transition was smooth and supportive. Margaret's new living space was bright and welcoming, with plenty of room for her art supplies and a view that inspired her creativity. The day she moved in, her children gathered around her, their presence a comforting reminder that she was not alone. Emma visited often, their bond remaining as strong as ever. Margaret continued to paint, each new piece a reflection of her journey and the love that had finally begun to heal old wounds. As the weeks turned into months, Margaret's art flourished. With the support of her family, she organized her first exhibition, a small but significant event that celebrated her transformation. The gallery was filled with her paintings, each one telling a story of resilience, hope, and the enduring power of love. Her children stood by her side, their relationships slowly mending, their hearts opening to the lessons Margaret's journey had taught them. And as the world admired her art, Margaret knew that she had found her true inheritance, the strength to rebuild her life and the love that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. The exhibition had been a success beyond Margaret's wildest dreams. People from all walks of life came to see her paintings, each piece resonating deeply with those who viewed them. The gallery buzzed with admiration and emotion, and Margaret's heart swelled with pride as she stood amidst her creations. Her children, once distant and preoccupied, were now by her side, their presence a testament to the healing power of art and love. Months passed, and the bond between Margaret and her children grew stronger. They visited her regularly, their conversations rich with memories and new experiences. Margaret's new living space felt like a home, filled with warmth and the vibrant colors of her paintings. She was no longer just a resident of a care facility, she was an independent woman, an artist, and most importantly, a mother whose family was finding its way back to her. One sunny afternoon, as Margaret sat in her cozy living room working on a new piece, the doorbell rang. She set down her brush and opened the door to find David, Laura, and Michael standing there, smiles lighting up their faces. "Surprise!" Laura exclaimed, holding up a picnic basket. "We thought we'd spend the day with you, Mom. Maybe take a walk in the park and have a picnic?" Margaret's eyes sparkled with joy. "That sounds wonderful. Let me grab my jacket." They strolled to a nearby park, the summer sun casting a golden hue over the lush green grass. They found a perfect spot under a large oak tree, spreading out a blanket and unpacking the picnic basket filled with sandwiches, fruits, and lemonade. As they settled in, the atmosphere was light and filled with laughter, a stark contrast to the strained visits of the past. As they enjoyed their meal, Margaret looked around at her children, each one absorbed in their own thoughts. She decided to address something that had been on her mind for a while. "I want to thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "These moments mean the world to me. I've been thinking a lot about how far we've come, and I want you to know how proud I am of each of you." David smiled, his eyes reflecting the gratitude he felt. "We're proud of you too, Mom. Your strength and resilience have taught us so much." Laura nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We've learned a lot about ourselves through this journey. It hasn't been easy, but I feel like we're finally where we're supposed to be, as a family." Michael, who had been quiet, spoke up. "Mom, your paintings, they've inspired me to reconnect with my own art. I've started working on new pieces, and I owe that to you." Margaret's heart swelled with emotion. "That means so much to me, Michael. Art has a way of healing and bringing people together. I'm glad it's doing that for you too." They spent the rest of the afternoon sharing stories and dreams, their connection growing deeper with each passing moment. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, they packed up their picnic and walked back to Margaret's place, the bonds of family feeling stronger than ever. Over the next few weeks, Margaret continued to thrive in her new environment. Her days were filled with painting, visits from her children, and the company of new friends she had made in the community. She even started teaching a small art class, sharing her passion and skills with others who had also faced their own challenges. One evening, as she was cleaning up after her class, Emma stopped by for a visit. "I heard your class was a big hit," she said with a smile. "How does it feel to be a teacher?" Margaret laughed softly. "It feels wonderful. I never thought I'd have the chance to share my love for art with others. It's incredibly rewarding." Emma sat down beside her, a look of pride in her eyes. "You've come so far, Margaret. It's inspiring to see how much you've accomplished." Margaret reached for Emma's hand, squeezing it gently. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." "Thank you, Emma." Emma smiled warmly. "You did the hard work, Margaret. I'm just glad I could be here to support you." As the days turned into weeks, Margaret's life continued to blossom. Her children were more present than ever, their visits filled with laughter, love, and the occasional family dinner. The bond between them grew stronger, a testament to the power of forgiveness and the resilience of the human spirit. One Saturday morning, David called to say he had a surprise for her. "I'll be over in an hour, Mom. I think you're going to love this." Curiosity piqued, Margaret spent the next hour wondering what David had planned. When he finally arrived, he was carrying a large, framed photograph covered with a cloth. "Close your eyes," he instructed with a grin. Margaret did as she was told, and when she opened her eyes, David removed the cloth to reveal a beautifully framed photograph of her standing in front of her paintings at the exhibition, a look of pure joy on her face. "It's from the exhibition," David explained. "I thought you'd like a reminder of how far you've come." Tears welled in Margaret's eyes as she gazed at the photograph. "Thank you, David. This is perfect. I'll treasure it always." As she looked at the photograph, Margaret realized that her journey was far from over. She had found strength in her art, in her family, and in herself. And with each passing day, she continued to grow, to heal, and to embrace the life she had rebuilt from the ashes of her past. Her children, once distant and disconnected, were now her greatest support, their love and presence a constant reminder of the power of resilience and the importance of family. And as she hung the photograph on her wall, surrounded by her paintings, Margaret knew that she had found her true inheritance, the strength to rebuild her life and the love that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. The days leading up to the gallery's grand opening were a whirlwind of activity. Margaret's paintings had been carefully arranged, each one telling a chapter of her journey, a testament to her resilience and the strength she had found in herself and her family. Her children had been instrumental in organizing the event, their support and dedication a source of immense pride for her. On the evening of the exhibition, the gallery buzzed with anticipation. Guests from all walks of life had gathered to see Margaret's work, drawn by the story of her transformation and the powerful emotions captured in her paintings. The gallery's walls were adorned with her art, each piece illuminated to showcase its depth and beauty. Margaret stood near the entrance, welcoming guests with a warm smile, her heart swelling with a mix of nervousness and excitement. David, Laura, and Michael stood by her side, their presence a comforting reminder of how far they had all come. As the evening progressed, Margaret found herself surrounded by admirers and art enthusiasts, each one eager to hear the story behind her work. She shared her journey with them, speaking of the accident, the abandonment, and the long road to recovery. Her voice was steady, filled with the confidence she had gained through her experiences. A hush fell over the crowd as David stepped forward, a microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight to celebrate my mother's incredible journey. Her art is a testament to her strength, resilience, and the power of love and family. We're honored to share this moment with you." Margaret's heart swelled with pride as David spoke, his words a poignant reminder of the bond they had rebuilt. She glanced at Laura and Michael, their eyes reflecting the same pride and love she felt. This was their moment, a culmination of their shared journey. As the evening continued, Margaret found herself drawn to a group of people gathered around one of her most significant paintings, a large, vibrant piece that depicted her children as she remembered them from their childhood. The colors were warm and bright, capturing the innocence and joy of those early years. A woman in the group turned to Margaret, her eyes shining with admiration. "This piece is extraordinary. The love and emotion you've captured here are palpable. Can you tell us more about it?" Margaret smiled, her gaze lingering on the painting. "This piece is very special to me. It represents the bond one share with my children, the memories we've created together, and the love that has sustained us through the toughest times. Painting it was a way for me to reconnect with those moments and remind myself of the strength that comes from family." The woman nodded, visibly moved. "It's truly inspiring. Your story and your art have touched so many lives. Thank you for sharing it with us." Margaret felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for being here and for your kind words. It means the world to me." As the night drew to a close, the gallery began to empty, and Margaret found herself standing alone for a moment, surrounded by her paintings. She took a deep breath, letting the emotions of the evening wash over her. It had been a journey of pain, healing, and ultimately, transformation. Just then, Emma appeared, a broad smile on her face. "Margaret, I can't tell you how proud I am of you. Tonight was incredible." Margaret reached out, hugging Emma tightly. "Thank you, Emma. I couldn't have done this without you. You've been my rock through it all." Emma pulled back, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "You did this, Margaret. You found the strength within yourself. I'm just glad I could be here to support you." David, Laura, and Michael approached, their faces glowing with pride and love. "Mom, tonight was amazing," Laura said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your art, your story, it's all so inspiring." Michael nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how art can heal. I want to start creating again, and I have you to thank for that." Margaret's heart swelled with happiness. "That means more to me than you know, Michael. I'm so proud of all of you." David stepped forward, his eyes reflecting the same pride. "Mom, you've taught us so much about strength and resilience. We're so grateful for you and everything you've done." As they stood together, surrounded by the vibrant colors of Margaret's paintings, a sense of peace and fulfillment settled over them. They had come full circle, finding their way back to each other through love and understanding. Margaret looked at her children, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "I want you all to know that no matter what happens, we have each other. That's the most important thing. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger. I love you all so much." Tears glistened in their eyes as they embraced, the bond between them stronger than ever. Margaret knew that this was her true inheritance, not the paintings or the acclaim, but the love and unity of her family. The final scene of the night was one of quiet reflection. Margaret stood by the largest window in the gallery, looking out at the city lights. Her children joined her, their presence a comforting reminder of the journey they had shared. Together, they gazed at the horizon, the future filled with endless possibilities. Margaret's heart was full, her soul at peace. She had found her way through the darkness, emerging stronger and more resilient. And with her family by her side, she knew that anything was possible. The gallery lights dimmed, casting a soft glow over the paintings. Margaret looked at her children, a smile playing on her lips. "Let's go home," she said softly, her voice filled with hope and love. And as they left the gallery, stepping into the cool night air, Margaret felt a sense of fulfillment that she had never known before. She had found her true inheritance, not in material wealth, but in the love and strength of her family. And that, she knew, was the greatest gift of all.